Hey Joel, I watched your TED Talk. I really did like it. I like talking about the different cultures because that was something I noticed. Like, I'm from a really small town, so there was like definitely diversity, but just nothing like living in a big city like in this area. So I felt like moving down to San Diego like really vastly like increased my cultural lenses. So the things that stood out in the TED Talk to me were how he talked about personal space. That was something that I noticed with other cultures, even from a young age. Like that was something I noticed, and it wasn't until college that I really learned about it. And then like just bringing it up in the TED Talk made it stand out to me more. I also really noticed that he seemed to like fall like like definitely on the side of like honesty and like explaining to like the other cultures like, hey, like where I'm from, like we don't really like there's more structure. Like we don't really just come up and talk to people, like we're a little more formal about it. So like, sorry if I was rude like to you. So that stood out to me. And then I liked his ending quote where he was talking about it's like it's not what we see, it's what we perceive. And I just agreed with that because the way we perceive things is like based on like our education and like our influences and our family and our values and like, what we learned growing up and what's normal for us. And so what we perceive someone's culture might be different than ours. So it's like learning about how to change, I think, how you perceive things. So yeah, that was like what I liked about the video. To answer your questions, I think that the first question you asked was how can we adjust our cultural lenses in healthcare and like how we can use it to improve our care. I think that the biggest way we can adjust our cultural lens is to continue to seek education because like even from my own personal experience, it wasn't until I went to college and like actually learned to look for these things that I'm trying to like word it right. But like basically I felt like it wasn't until I went to college and learned more about cultures that I was able to recognize more like differences and like learn how to handle it. Like I am just speaking from my standpoint. I really don't I really hope I was like never rude to other people. I've always been like really open and stuff like that. I was homeschooled, so I didn't interact with a lot of people until college. So like I just noticed like a lot of development with myself because before then I primarily spent all my time with my family. Um so I think that we can improve our healthcare by continuing to pursue education and like not just like CEUs for nursing, but also like I think it would be really great like for hospitals to like just provide classes on like popular cultures in your area that you're living, which I know would be hard for San Diego because we have like so much diversity, but I still think it would be beneficial. Your second question was how can we change our lens to benefit communication? I still fall on the side of education. That question overall was really hard for me to answer because I feel like that's something I could probably learn more about and learn more ways we could improve communication. I think it just would, my default answer, if I had to pick on the spot like I feel right now, is I think that we could improve communication by continuing to learn ourselves in the education standpoint and then also to learn to have I almost want to say like self-control or like the patience to understand and recognize that some people are different from us and it just falls back on like how they were raised and like, their culture and what they value might be a little different than ours. And your last question, I'm just scrolling down, is so I think that people have like a harder like I think even that like we are pretty diverse and I know that we have a lot of cultures, but I think it's like what's that bird saying? Like birds of a feather flock together. So I think just when you're in like an unsure situation, I think that people are kind of just naturally looking for people with the same like values and stuff. So we still end up surrounding ourselves with people who are similar to us. So I think it's not until you experience something that you're like, oh, maybe I should look at this from like a whole different perspective to where you even like recognize that like, oh, like I need to broaden my horizons. And I think like that's kind of the trigger is that until you haven't really come up with or experience a life point in which you need to get more opinions and like learn more about yourself and like just have that diversity experience, you don't really realize it. So that's my thoughts. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a good night. Good night.